The wind howled across the empty plains like a wounded animal, carrying with it the weight of 100 unsaid words. Under the fading glow of the evening sky, she stood there, trembling, not from the cold, but from the storm brewing between their hearts. Her voice came out soft, fragile, but sharp enough to cut through the silence like a blade. "Say it if you mean it," she whispered. In that suspended moment, his eyes locked onto hers, and the world seemed to fall utterly silent, as if the universe itself was waiting for his answer. Before we dive deeper into this emotional Wild West story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of love that changes lives, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to The Gentle Truth. Also, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. We love hearing your stories and connecting hearts across borders. The ranch stretched endlessly beneath the fading sun, golden fields rippling in the breeze like an ocean frozen in time. Ethan Callahan had spent his entire life on this land, tending to cattle, fixing fences, and living in a silence that kept him safe. Life on the frontier had a way of teaching men to bury their feelings deep beneath their skin, as if vulnerability itself could draw blood. But all of that changed the day Clara showed up on the back of a dusty wagon, carrying nothing but a few clothes, a stubborn heart, and a spirit that refused to bend. She came from the east, sent to work as a teacher in the small town nearby, but storms and broken axles had left her stranded on his land. What began as reluctant hospitality slowly turned into something far more dangerous, something neither of them had dared to name. At first, Ethan tried to keep his distance. He was a man molded by loss, carved by years of loneliness and survival. His wife had died young, the prairie fever taking her away before they ever had a chance to build a family. Since then, words of love had become like dry seeds, scattered but never allowed to take root. Clara, however, was different. She carried warmth like a lantern in the dark, stubbornly lighting the corners of his life he'd long ago abandoned. She laughed freely, questioned everything, and spoke to him like he wasn't a man made of stone. Over the months, Clara brought change to the ranch in ways neither of them expected. She convinced Ethan to repair the long-abandoned schoolhouse at the edge of town, taught local children to read under the shade of a giant cottonwood, and brought music to the quiet nights with her soft singing. And slowly, Ethan's walls began to crack. He found himself watching her when she wasn't looking, memorizing the way her hair caught the sunset, the way her hands touched broken things as if they could be healed by sheer will. For the first time in years, he wasn't just living, he was feeling, but love in the Wild West was never simple. Whispers began to spread in town. People wondered why an unmarried woman was living on a ranch with a widowed man. Suitors came for Clara, men who promised her a proper life back east, far from the dirt and storms. And deep down, Ethan began to believe they were right. He told himself she deserved more than a man who had lost everything. He tried to pull away, becoming cold and distant, pushing her toward a future he thought would make her happy, even if it broke him in the process. Clara noticed. She saw through every quiet dinner, every stiff gesture, every excuse he gave to avoid the truth sitting between them. The breaking point came on a night heavy with rain. A letter arrived for Clara, an offer from a school in Philadelphia promising her safety, respect, and a future. Ethan found her standing by the barn, the letter crumpled in her hands, tears streaking her cheeks as thunder rolled in the distance. He wanted to speak, to tell her to stay, to confess the truth that had been eating at him for months. But the words stuck in his throat, tangled in pride and fear. That's when she whispered it. "Say it if you mean it." Her voice trembled, not from weakness, but from the strength it took to confront the silence he'd wrapped around himself. Ethan's heart pounded like hooves on the open plains. In that moment, every memory, every laugh, every shared glance, every unspoken feeling came crashing down on him like a storm. His eyes met hers, and for the first time in years, he didn't hide. He didn't build walls. He didn't run. The weight of his silence pressed down on him until something inside cracked wide open. He took a step forward, closing the space between them. his hands shaking not from fear of her, but from fear of finally being known. He whispered her name like a prayer, his voice breaking under the weight of his feelings. He told her that she had brought life back into a place that had been dead for too long, that her laughter had become the rhythm of his days, that her presence had turned his quiet ranch into a home. Every word was raw, unpolished, but real, the kind of truth that doesn't need poetry because it bleeds honesty. Clara's tears fell freely, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of hearing what she had always known in her heart. As the rain poured harder, Ethan reached for her hand. The world around them blurred into gray, but inside that moment everything was vivid. The scent of wet earth, the warmth of her skin, the sound of two hearts beating in rhythm for the first time. He didn't care what the town said. He didn't care about the past that haunted him. All that mattered was this woman, standing before him, asking him to speak the truth he'd buried for too long. And he did, not through grand gestures, but through a quiet, steady promise whispered against the storm. From that night on, things changed. Clara didn't take the job in Philadelphia. Together, they faced the whispers, the doubts, and the harsh winters. The school she built became a beacon in their small town, and Ethan, for the first time, learned what it meant to love without fear. Years later, people would speak of their bond as something rare and unbreakable. Two souls who found each other in the middle of nowhere and decided to stay, not because it was easy, but because it was real. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Gentle Truth. These stories live because of your support. Before you go, tell us in the comments, have you ever held back your true feelings or found the courage to finally speak them? Your story might inspire someone else tonight.